Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you to this Asia-Pacific regional commemoration of International Women's Day 2019, under the global theme, Think Equal, Build Smart, Innovate for Change. It is my honor now to invite Ms. Amida Alishabana, United Nations Under-Secretary General and Executive Secretary ESCAP, to deliver her opening remarks. Please, Ms. Alishabana, the floor is yours.
Excellency, Madam Donika Poti, Ambassador of Canada, Excellency, Madam Satu Suikari Kleffen, Ambassador of Finland, Excellency, Madam Efren Dagdalen Akgun, Ambassador of Turkey, Ms. Anna Karin Jatfors, UN Women Regional Director for Asia and the Pacific, Excellencies, Ambassadors, distinguished participants, a very warm welcome to all of you to the International Women's Day. I'm delighted to be with you to consider what more can be done to advance gender equality and empower women in our region. It is a privilege to do so alongside such distinguished panelists, all of whom are well placed to respond to this year's International Women's Day theme, Think Equal, Build Smart, Innovate for Change. Last year, Me Too inspired movements across Asia and the Pacific, created momentum for change. Women spoke out against an unacceptable status quo, which continues to deprive too many women and girls of respect and equal opportunity. Expectations have been raised. Yet on its current trajectory, our region's progress will fall short of achieving gender equality by 2030, with women in rural areas particularly at a disadvantage. Some progress has been made. Equality in primary education enrollment has been achieved. The region is nearing parity at secondary and tertiary levels. Women outnumber men as students in tertiary institutions in most parts of our region. Yet these enrollment levels belie high dropout rates and lower attainment levels for women. They are not translating into increased labor market participation. Indeed, only half the women in our region work compared to 80% of men. Women's share of the labor force is declining. This is overall picture, yeah. Certainly, among the different countries, different picture. 2/3 of those who do work are in the informal sector, often with no social protection and in hazardous conditions. In companies and government, women in decision-making and leadership positions are the exception. The scourge of physical and sexual violence against women remains shockingly high. Women's empowerment requires action on all fronts. Thinking Equal, in our analysis, policymaking, and budgeting can provide a solid basis for the innovation needed. This innovation can partly be powered by technological progress. Indeed, the unfolding fourth industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0, yeah, as it is commonly recognized, has great potential. Yet the technological automation, which is changing the workplace, has an important gender dimension, which must be proactively managed. Women are more likely to work in jobs at risk of being automated and much less likely to have access to technology. So, as we look to the future, let me mention 3 priority areas. First, gender-responsive budgeting has a key role to play. Only by adjusting public expenditure to better respond to women and girls' needs can we make the scale of adjustments needed. This is particularly important when it comes to the provision of social protection, education, and healthcare. Gender-responsive budgeting focus on improving educational opportunities could help prepare women and girls better for the modern workplace. It could reduce the burden of unpaid care work so many women shoulder, improve sexual and reproductive health services, and facilitate family planning. Many countries have undertaken work in this area, including through the publication of gender budget statements at the national and local level. The United Nations must continue to support this approach as a key means of implementing the 2030 Agenda. Second, we must build a more supportive environment for women entrepreneurs. They are proven catalysts for change and a reliable means of increasing women's share of the workforce. Women employ women, who in turn are known to spend more on their families, with hugely positive knock effects for children's education, diet, and health. In addition to societal benefits, of course, economic gains, GDP gains from a more gender equal workplace are enormous. To seize this opportunity, greater access to finance and ICT tools for business development are essential, supporting scaled-up investments for women entrepreneurs, including through initiatives such as the Women FinTech Innovation Fund we are working to set up are very important. We need both funding and technical support for companies to pilot innovative digital solutions which support women-led enterprises. Third, with the right legislative frameworks, new technologies can support the delivery of healthcare, education, and education services. E-government mechanisms are already improving service delivery. Collectively, we need to ensure these are gender-sensitive and used to strengthen women's participation in decision-making. With this in mind, I hope ESCAP's online toolkit called E-Government for Women's Empowerment in Asia and the Pacific can make a contribution to the UN family's broader effort in this area. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, 2020, which is next year, will mark the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, a truly progressive agenda for gender equality. Working closely with UN Women, ESCAP will be convening an Asia-Pacific high-level intergovernmental meeting in November of this year to take stock and agree on how to accelerate progress. This is our region's opportunity to help shape the global agenda the following year. We are counting on your active engagement and support. More immediately, on International Women's Day, today, which is today, let us resolve to redouble our work, our effort to build the gender-responsive environments needed to empower women to innovate. I'm looking forward to joining forces with all of you to build more gender-equal societies in Asia and the Pacific. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ibu Amida. Thank you for emphasizing how supporting scaled-up investments for women can bring about transformative change in our families, communities, and societies. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I am now pleased to invite Ms. Anna-Karin Jatfors, Regional Director AI for the UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, to take the floor to deliver her opening remarks. Please, the floor is yours.
Ms. Armida Alishabana, United Nations Under-Secretary General and Executive Secretary of ESCAP, Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, UN colleagues and members of the UN Regional Coordination Mechanism, including our fellow members of the Thematic Working Group for Gender Equality and the Empowerment of Women, civil society colleagues, friends and allies. On behalf of UN Women, I join the Executive Secretary in adding my welcome and appreciation to all of you for being here this morning as we commemorate the 2019 International Women's Day. And the theme this year is Think Equal, Build Smart, Innovate for Change. And I think this is a motto that has to inform all of our efforts if we are to achieve the Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. This very ambitious agenda calls on us to achieve transformational change for all people everywhere, with a particular focus of those who have been left behind. And this agenda will not be attainable unless we challenge ourselves to rethink how we approach development. We need to ask ourselves who defines, shapes, and benefits from economic and social progress. How can we ensure that no single constituency is excluded? And in particular, how are we changing the realities of those who are furthest behind? And this cannot be done by continuing business as usual. It will require new ways of thinking, of solving problems, of promoting a culture of innovation that is based on the principles of inclusion and diversity, so that we can address our collective challenges in a way that benefits everyone. As we've heard, the Asia-Pacific region has seen much in the way of innovation in recent years, often driven by and enabled by advances in information and communications technologies. We've also seen many countries using policy and legislative arenas to advance social protection, to enhance access to quality essential services, old age pensions in many countries, access to affordable childcare, expanding universal health coverage. These are just some of the examples that Asia-Pacific member states shared with us at the recent regional preparatory meeting for the 63rd session of the Commission on the Status of Women, which we held in this very room last month. Across the region, innovations have also driven many positive, if also somewhat disruptive, changes in economic transformation, increasing food security and access to clean energy, and advancing digital financial solutions, just to mention a few. Now, if these are done with a gender lens, all these investments have the potential to transform women's lives, reducing their poverty, increasing their economic independence, and alleviating their disproportionate share of unpaid care work. Unfortunately, women still have limited participation and influence in shaping the decisions around these investments. For instance, in West and South Asia, less than 1/5 of researchers in science and technology are women. In East Asia and the Pacific, less than 1/4 of such researchers are women. And this is a huge missed opportunity to capitalize on women's experiences and insights to shape innovations that can respond to their needs and advance their strategic interests. But fortunately, we also see more and more examples of where innovations have been used to expand social protection, access to public services, and infrastructure in a way that pushes us to think equal and to place gender equality at the center. I'd like to share just a couple of brief examples. Within the Pacific, and with support from Canada and Australia, UN Women, together with UNDP and other partners, have a Markets for Change program, which is working to ensure that marketplaces, where up to 80–90% of vendors are women, are safe and inclusive spaces for women, non-discriminatory. The program is empowering thousands of women to organize themselves, to take on leadership roles in market vendor associations, not just helping them to participate, but also to shape marketplace governance and decision-making. These women are now using their voices to push for safe and secure infrastructure, water and sanitation facilities, and transparent revenue collection, for example. And this really shows the transformational impact that can be had when we have careful and considered attention to ensuring equal participation of women and men's experiences and priorities. We've also seen innovations in ICTs, when done in a gender-responsive way, to reduce violence against women and girls in public spaces. We've been very proud to support the rollout of the SafetyPin app in India, in Papua New Guinea, in the Philippines. And we will hear from Dr. Kalpana, who's the co-founder and chief executive of SafetyPin, to share with us later how that works. But essentially, it is about crowdsourcing safety-related data in cities, which users of the app can use to make informed decisions, but which can also help governments understand where the issues are and to identify solutions to address them. And sometimes we see that relatively simple technology-enabled solutions can go a long way in empowering women. We see, for example, using online platforms for Pakistan home-based food vendors to get access to markets, work with rural women in India to get access to second-chance education and skills building using virtual platforms. And another example I'd like to share, which UN Women has implemented together with UN Environment and with support from the government of Sweden. When we have gender-responsive investments in gender and climate change, we can support women to become renewable energy entrepreneurs, increasing both women's livelihoods while also expanding access to sustainable green energy. And finally, I'm very proud to announce that today, in commemoration of International Women's Day, the European Union and UN Women are joining hands in launching a new innovative program called We Empower Asia, which is about creating shared value partnerships between the private sector, female entrepreneurs and women-led businesses and policymakers to drive social change and women's economic business opportunities and empowerment, including through virtual and ICT-enabled platforms. So, to sum up, women make tremendous contributions, economic contributions to our economies. But often those contributions are invisible, they are undervalued, and they are unrecognized. So identifying meaningful solutions to enable them to realize their full potential and removing the structural obstacles that women face will bring transformative impact, not just for women, but for our societies at large. So we need to harness the energy, the creativity, the innovation of all people in shaping the solutions for tomorrow. On International Women's Day and every other day of the year, let us hold ourselves accountable for ensuring that our collective efforts advance gender equality and bring transformative change for all. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ms. Jatfors, for emphasizing the role of innovation and the think equal mindset that empowers girls and women everywhere in cities and communities alike. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, now please could I request you to turn your attention towards the screen where we will show a short video clip.
What does it mean to innovate? It means exploring solutions which can transform our world and accelerate impact, disrupting imbalances and creating more inclusive societies, breaking barriers to education and information with fresh ideas and technologies. It means taking a stand to say, we're not going to do things the old way. This International Women's Day and every day, women and girls are working with UN Women to pave a path to a better world. Leveraging blockchain and new technologies to empower women affected by humanitarian crisis. Thinking outside the box to expand access to public services, transportation, social benefits, and sanitation. Designing and building better infrastructure to improve safety and meet women's needs. Equipping the next generation of girls with the skills and opportunities to thrive and the knowledge to help us tackle the problems of tomorrow. And making sure that women are equally represented at the table so that their decisions, ideas, and experiences help define the world we want to see. We want a future where no woman or girl is left behind. Join us to shape that future and achieve a gender-equal world. Think equal, build smart, innovate for change.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to invite Her Excellency Ms. Donika Potti, Ambassador of Canada, to moderate a panel discussion entitled Unlocking Potential, Innovations for Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment. It is also my pleasure to invite our distinguished panelists to take their seats on the stage. Her Excellency Ms. Satu Suikari-Kleven, Ambassador of Finland. Her Excellency Ms. Evren Dagdelen Akgün, Ambassador of Turkey. Ms. Kalpana Viswanatha, co-founder and CEO of SafetyPin India. Mr. Josh Woodard, co-founder, Regional ICT and Digital Finance Advisor of FHI 360 in Asia Pacific. Ms. Vivina Siao, Managing Director of SAP Indochina. Ms. Potti, over to you.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the panel discussion, for those of you who are able to remain. It's a great pleasure for me to be moderating today's panel on unlocking potential innovation for gender equality and women's empowerment. We've heard the themes, and so the stage has been set, I hope, for a very good and practically focused discussion. There's movement in behind me, so I'm sure you're not listening now as you sing a mystery behind us. So I won't go back over the themes and the challenges. I think that, of course, our keynote speakers did a very good job at explaining the challenges and also providing some insights into how their organizations are working to meet those challenges. But I will introduce our distinguished panelists. Two of them are dear colleagues. First, of course, Her Excellency Ms. Satu Suikari-Kleven, the Ambassador of Finland. Yeah. Ambassador Satu joined the Foreign Ministry of Finland in 1993. She served in many capacities, including within her mission to the UN. She is a lawyer by training. She arrived just before me, in fact, a week before me in 2016, so we're not just close colleagues, we stand together often, we're seated together in protocol order quite often. And of course, importantly, and in recognition of her expertise, she is the EU gender focal point. Next, my dear colleague, Ms. Evren Dagdelen Akgün, the Ambassador of Turkey. Yeah. Ambassador Evren joined the Turkish Foreign Ministry the same year as Satu, in fact, in 1993. She's held several important positions within the Turkish government. She has been the ambassador to Thailand since February 2014. She is one half of a powerhouse foreign service couple, so I think that that brings with it challenges, but also an indication of how dedicated she is to diplomacy. And then three people I've just met today, had the honor to meet today for the first time. Ms. Kalpana Viswanatha, co-founder and CEO of Safety Pin. Yeah. As Anna Karan mentioned today earlier, Dr. Kalpana is the co-founder and CEO of Safety Pin, which is a social enterprise that uses data and technology to support cities in their endeavor to use data to make spaces safer for women and more inclusive and smarter. And she told me when we met that she was at a Smart Cities, Safe Smart Cities event in Edmonton last year. Mr. Josh Woodward, who is the Regional ICT and Digital Finance Advisor at FIH 360 in Asia Pacific. Mr. Woodward brings with him over 10 years of experience unlocking the potential of digital technology to help achieve development advances, and I know we're very interested in that experience. And lastly, Ms. Verena Seo. I hope I said that right, Verena. Yes, Seo. She's the Managing Director of SAP Indochina. Many of us use SAP operating systems. We may not know we're using them, but most of us in this room, I dare say, are using them. She is the first woman Managing Director of SAP Indochina and is very passionate about encouraging participation of women in STEM. So I think we have a diverse and interesting panel to move forward with. The panel discussion, I'll first propose 2 rounds of questions, and I'm going to be as firm as I can politely be with the timing, because after the 2 rounds of prepared questions that they've already seen, it will be over to you to propose questions or make comments that may take us in a different direction. The first round, I'm asked each panelist to limit their intervention to 6 minutes to make sure that at the end we do have time for our Q&A. I'm going to start with my colleague, Ambassador Satu, in part because Finland has a leading role internationally in coming the closest to achieving gender equality. Finland is a trailblazer and ranks 4th in the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Index. So Ambassador Satu, I'm just going to ask you to speak a bit about the innovation and policy underpinnings that have allowed Finland to have such a leadership role in women's equality and to link that back to innovation. So 6 minutes, over to you.
Thank you so much, Danica. Is this on? Yeah. You hear me? Very good. Thank you, and very happy Women's Day to you all. What I'm going to talk about doesn't necessarily sound like something revolutionary or even innovative today. But believe me, at the time when they were introduced, they were both. They were both innovative, they were both revolutionary. They changed the way of thinking, they were deemed revolutionary, they were deemed threatening to the existing society, existing values and norms of the society. But they are as relevant today as they were a long time ago. So let me start by going back to 1907, and that was the year when Finland had the first parliamentarians, and actually they were the first parliamentarians in the whole world. It was the first country to give women right to stand for elections. And so that was in 1907. And so of course this is a fundamental foundation to have women in the decision making. And it takes that principle, of course, in politics, in any field, is as relevant today, and the challenges are great still today. But I wanted to just mention one thing from those days more than 100 years ago. I found out that there was actually, of course it was a very strong group of women who for decades had been advocating for that in Finland. And of course they've been threatened, they've been criticized and all that. But also there was a group of men who said that 2 things: benefit for the society and rights. You know, we cannot afford not to let the society benefit the whole of the all expertise of the whole the human power there is in the society. And second, they said that if I have a right to do something, I cannot deny that right from somebody else. And I think this was fantastic. So that kind of paved the way then to have women in politics. Of course, it is still, still the issue we have to find innovative ways of keeping up there and making sure that the principle goes to all spheres of society. And actually, I was very happy a few months ago at the European Union and UN Women and the relevant Thai ministries and organizations organized together a seminar on women in politics. And this report will come out soon with some innovative ideas on this. Then the next thing I wanted to bring up, again, going back to history, and this is sort of a social benefits, the importance of social, different forms of social security, to support women to do the choices that they want to do. You know, if you want to work, you can go to work. And to support women of all incomes to support a family and to have children and so forth. And I have something here I wanted to show, which is a very concrete example. Magic box. This is called baby box or the maternity box. It's it was introduced 81 years ago, first to women with lower income, but then to all women. No, sorry, not all women, all babies in Finland. Every baby in Finland gets this box with everything that is necessary to start with. This box, also a bed, so you have all the clothes and you have all the things for the bed and everything a baby needs at the beginning. So a baby's, irrespective of their background and parents' income, or if you're a single mom with no income, they would get this box and start a good life. So this helped a lot of lower income women in those days. And then another example, of course. Again, what today doesn't sound threatening, doesn't sound revolutionary, daycare, children's daycare. In 1973, we had the legislation for granting affordable childcare to everybody. And again, one of the dimensions was gender equality, to enable both parents to go to work. And of course, mainly women, empowering, because women were those who stayed at home most. But it was criticized a lot at that time, shaking the foundations of the society again and the family. But then it turned out to be something really positive. And today, of course, we have changed not only in Finland, but in lots of European countries and other countries to where then the enabling of women and men both to work has gone much further. For instance, in the paternity leaves, and for instance, Sweden has this Father's Month that they will going to present in the coming weeks under an initiative I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a while. But basically, I wanted to bring up really traditional, really like human innovations, and that are old, that really build the foundation, that are still relevant, extremely relevant, but also whose implementation can be enhanced by the technological advances that we have today. So thank you very much.
Well, and thank you so much, Ambassador Satu, for reminding us that actually innovation doesn't have to be high-tech. We have one Canadian province that has actually just recently adopted the baby box, so hopefully it will continue to promulgate. And also for reminding us of the importance of men who are human rights defenders, who believe in human rights, also taking on a role supporting women's rights. I'm going to turn now to Kun Kalpana. And ask her, because I know we're all interested in what how Safety Pin has operated, what it's achieved, why you decided, of course, what inspired you to do this. And then lastly, based on your journey so far, what message would you give to inspiring young innovators, especially women and girls?
Thank you so much. Thank you all to be here. I'm delighted to be here. I've actually come from India for this event. I'm actually a very unlikely entrepreneur myself, especially a tech entrepreneur, because most tech entrepreneurs are, first of all, I mean, both my gender and my age go against me, because most people building apps are young people in their 20s who build it overnight at a hackathon. So I think it was quite unexpected. My background is I'm a sociologist. I've worked with NGOs on women's rights. But a few years ago, I sort of, along with my co-founder, who is more the technology person, I had been working on the issue of women's safety, urban safety, for many years. And I felt that there was some very significant work that we'd been doing at the grassroots level. But it wasn't reaching out to a general public. Because a lot of time when you work in an NGO and in that level, you do extremely good, deep work, but it doesn't get out to the larger world, you know. And so I sort of, at that time, the idea of building an app was something that my co-founder and I thought of, and we just built it. We just took a tool that had been used actually by both UN Women, as well as many women's groups, which was something called the Women's Safety Audit. So the safety audit is actually a very simple assessment tool of how safe public places are. So when you walk in a public space, do you feel safe or unsafe? And then it has a set of parameters which looks at what makes you feel safe. So it is really a methodology to unpack which spaces are safe and which is unsafe. So it's a very simple tool, very empowering for women because they can walk out and just measure this public space and say how they feel. So we took that tool and we made it into a technology, into an app and a technology platform, which is a free app. It's called My Safety Pin, and it's available in about 5 languages currently, in English, in Hindi, in Spanish, but also actually in Vietnamese and Khmer, because we've been working in these countries. It can be translated into any language. It's a simple process. So the idea is that we have the safety audit in the app, so anybody, anywhere in the world can open the safety audit and do it. Now, what does the safety audit measure? It measures 2 things. It measures a set of physical parameters, so it looks at the lighting, how good it is, how easy, how walkable the space is there good public transport? But it also measures what we call social infrastructure. So are there people on the streets? Are there shops on the streets? Are there women on the streets? So how do you sort of, how is the street being engaged? And today in this entire debate on walkability and encouraging active streets, there is a lot of debate, sort of conversations around how do we make our cities better for walking? How do we make our cities safer for walking? And one of the things I've really found over the past couple of years is that if a city is safe for walking, it is safe. So walkability and safety are actually interchangeable. So if you design for walkability, you will make it safe. If you design for safety, it will become walkable. So we're actually, through safety, addressing many broader issues. And I say that because why did I focus on women's safety? 2 reasons. One is that if you focus on a group that has traditionally been vulnerable, especially on the issues of safety, you tend to address the needs of the entire society. So most of our cities traditionally were planned with the male in mind, right? It was the male, able-bodied male, the heterosexual male who went to work in the morning and came back in the evening. So for example, all our bus systems are designed for this rush hour because this was when men traveled to work. It did not look at the travel patterns of other people. Something as simple as when you get into a bus often, I think some countries it's changed, for women to hold that bar is actually much higher than it is comfortable. That's because all public transport has been designed for men as the model. You know, so even to challenge some of those very simple things, saying that women are part of the city, Women use public transport. Women use streets. What is the length, what is the size of the pavement that needs to be there so that, you know, people can walk as well as have a street life, such as street vendors. You know, street vendors are an important part of street life, but they need to be given space or else they will eat up the space that you use to walk, which we see in Thailand very often. So basically what we've done with this tool is that it's been used in many countries. As Anna Karine also mentioned, we've partnered with many organizations, but we've done it. We have about 30 cities now where there is data about safety pin, and we have active projects with city governments in about 10 cities, and I just want to speak about the two very interesting partnerships that we've had. One is with the Delhi government, where we did a study where we mapped the entire city. So we map it on two bases. One is the crowdsourcing, as I mentioned. Volunteers can give in data. But we also have a methodology where we actually take photographs of the city at night and analyze them. So we're able to map the entire city based on this. So in Delhi, we mapped about 56,000 spots in the city. Yeah. So, and we just wanted to sort of finish that. And what's been really, I think, encouraging for us is this last year, the Delhi government has come back to us and asked us to do a fresh mapping of the city because they found our earlier data so useful. So similarly, we've had other cities where city governments are now using our data. So really, I will end by saying it is a tool which is both in the hands of women to make more safer decisions for their lives, but also a tool for city governments and municipal governments to make simple changes to make public spaces and cities safer and more inclusive for women and everyone.
Well, thank you so much. And hopefully during the Q&A, someone will ask you about one of your other examples, because it was a very rich presentation and also a really interesting exercise in using crowdsourcing and other ways to think about safety for women and to allow us to contribute to that actively. I'm going to ask my colleague, Ambassador Ocwen, now to speak a bit. Of course, when we're talking about Innovate for Change, we need to be looking at the digital environment. And we would like, I guess, Ambassador Ocwen, just to ask you about the good practices that come from Turkey in this regard and how ICT or other forms of technology have been used to advance women's equality.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Executive Secretary, Ms. Chapters from UN Women, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I am actually sitting here before you today as one of 63 women ambassadors of Turkey serving in Thailand since 2017. More than half of that number currently are women ambassadors serving abroad. Women, I suppose, for the sake of being brief, of course, I have to really sweep over a lot of thoughts. But one a rather ambitious but probably very correct thought is that the way we perceive women might be determinant of how we will shape our future. Having said this, I have to underline that I come from a country where women's rights, the way we know it today, has started to take shape since the end of the 20s, where women were given the right to vote and be elected already in the early 30s in Turkey. Today, equality of men and women and men before law is a basic principle of our constitution. We have made sweeping reforms also in our penal and criminal codes, where women's rights have been revamped. Human rights of women, let's say. In terms of responding to the question to be on target, it is a very vast area. The world is in a big transformation. This transformation is also shaped, of course, by digitalization, technologies, information technologies, and there are, of course, studies where studies show that this has contributed to decreasing inequalities between women and men. However, of course, this is not enough. In some cases, we probably have fallbacks as well. So it's a tough road ahead, but it's also a horizon-widening road ahead. We have we have come up with a number of projects where we have tried to pull all of this together. I want to first mention one strategic plan that we have put in force last year that will be sort of like a basis of some of the actions in this respect that we might be taking. I'm saying might because I'm not an expert, but I think that is actually going to happen. The strategic plan and the strategic policy document and the action plan covers the years 2018-2023, and it addresses 5 policy areas in terms of women's empowerment. So the areas are economy, health, education, decision-making processes, and media. Which I think are all very important and in a way interconnected areas. I'm going to take one of those, and that is economy, economic processes and women's participation in labor force and women's employment. It is clear that for sustainable inclusive growth, the more women are taking part in labor force, the further a country, a society goes. Within this policy area, we have also underlined another project where 200,000 women are going to be employed, let's say, will be encouraged, measures will be taken for them to be employed in engineering sector. So this is one of the goals. We have a Equal Opportunities Commission at the Parliament. This commission, of course, is looking at everything to do with providing women and men with equal opportunities. But there has been a new setup under the committee, which is a subcommittee, and that is a very interesting one, very relevant one. It is a committee to guide and help youngsters, and with an emphasis on females, to go into sectors, STEM sectors. And I believe they are going to be doing some really valuable work. We have a number of projects, as I said, that have already been undertaken and also some underway that emphasize digitalization, digital literacy for women, one woman, so let me just go quickly over those. You're really tough. One of the things, and I'm sorry, I have to go run to the airport, so probably it was wishful thinking. My dear colleague Donika didn't really mention it, but I'm going to have to part soon, and I do. All right, and I do apologize for that. So maybe I could get like 30 seconds more. We have carried out some projects like Engineer Girls of Turkey with the UNDP, where female students have been encouraged to go for engineering sector. These are also all done with the ministries. My Mother's Work is My Future is a very interesting project. This ties in with what Satu was talking about. It's where we have created and are continuing to create daycare centers for kids in industrial organized zones. So that is to encourage women to go into industrial work, actually. But then we have other measures where daycare centers and children's issues as such are handled. We carried out an interesting project where we paid grandparents to take care of their grandchildren, and that worked well. And I think it's over now, but we have drawn some important lessons and experiences from that. And one more thing I would like to mention, that we have digital literacy seminars, we have mobile cars and trucks that go around to educate women in digital areas. International Day of Women and Girls in Science, and My Madame Curie is another project where we encourage. I think the baseline is that I have other projects that are very interesting, but what we try to do is to give females the idea that they lack role modeling in general. So what we are trying to do in conjunction with the private sector and NGOs is to give girls in schools and also through university that they have the same chances, the same abilities to go into the sort of non-traditional sectors. Today, 50% of university students are female in Turkey. 35% of that is like engineering sector. So we are really trying very hard to increase this by setting role models as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Particularly for reminding us of the importance of the machinery of government, of getting policies right and of piloting policies to see if they work, and of role models for women. And while my Swedish colleague is here, a shout out to Sweden, who have launched, I think last year or the year before, an effort to ensure that Wikipedia has more women's stories in Wikipedia. So when women are going looking for role models on the largest single platform in the world, they find more female examples. So a shout out in terms of role models to Sweden. I'm going to turn now to our lone male panelist, Josh Woodward, who is the Regional ICT and Digital Finance Advisor of FHI 360. Do you say 360 or 360? 360 in Asia Pacific. FHI 360 uses cutting-edge digital technology to design and deliver innovative programs in governance, education, environment, health, and others. And I'm going to ask him to focus specifically on, to dig down or a little deeper on the area of empowerment of women and girls. So, Josh, what would you say the potential for digital technology is for helping to empower women and girls and to achieve SDG 5? And if you have an example of how your technology has been used to improve the lives of women and girls, that would be of interest too.
Sure, great. Thank you very much. So just very quickly for anyone who's not aware, so FHI 360, we're an international nonprofit. We're working in about 60 countries globally in a range of development humanitarian programs. And in Bangkok is our regional office for Asia Pacific, so that's where I'm based. So I wanted to talk about two things in particular on that topic. One is, and I'll talk sort of generally first, then I'll go into some examples. The first is that I think when we look at technology as an enabler of empowerment for women and girls, there is, just the technology itself and the platforms in terms of being able to increase access to information, to networks, to financial services, to a whole range of things. Now, of course, it also, technology on the flip side, is it can amplify some of the negative aspects of society that already exist. So if we look at bullying, for example, young girls are, at least in the US, are much more likely to suffer from cyberbullying or be targets of cyberbullying than young boys. Women are much more likely to be the targets of sort of revenge, pornography, and other types of blackmail and violent behavior perpetrated against them than men. So that's a reality, and we have to, I think, recognize that and plan for it and mitigate for it in advance as we're thinking about our programming. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is just technology as an enabler of livelihoods and opportunity. And I think that, right now the reality is that, broadly speaking, globally, men are the majority of those employed in the technology sector. There are a lot of programs that are trying to try and help to support women entrepreneurs, to promote coding and making sort of coding exciting and interesting to young girls and women. And it's important for two reasons. Well, it's probably important for a lot of reasons, but two that come to mind. One, to what Kalpana was mentioning in terms of how cities, being designed around men, right, and the needs of men. The same thing, sort of, whether, I don't think it's deliberate, but the impact is the same, that if you have mostly men who are designing technology platforms, they're going to tend to be designed to the needs of men and less so to women. So, I think the more that women and girls can be involved in coding and technology, I think there's benefits from that perspective, and then also just as a pathway to livelihood. And it's also, if we look at coding as a particular example, you don't have to be in an office to be a coder, right? So there's a lot of flexibility that is inherent in that. You can work from home. You can still have take care of other responsibilities, particularly if you live in a country where there's more traditional male-female roles that are expected. You still have an opportunity to be involved in employment without having to travel to the office. So in terms of just some specific examples for the time that I have, I've done a lot of work in financial inclusion and other stuff as well. But we look at financial inclusion in particular, and I was just last week in India, in Jharkhand state, in a rural village. It was a tribal community, and we were partnering with some private sector firms and civil society to extend financial services to female poultry farmers. And I was talking to this one woman, and she was saying how, previously, before she had access to her finances on her phone, she had to walk 8 kilometers to the bank, and then walk 8 kilometers back through forest to get there. And then you get to the bank, it's very inefficient. So you waste the whole day. So she had lost a whole day previously. Now she has access to finances that she controls. Another in Bangladesh, we've also been working in the space. I remember a community health worker that we had worked with. She mentioned how previously, when she got paid, the money would get deposited into her husband's bank account. So then when she needed access to it, she had to basically get his permission. Now she was getting access directly in an account in her name on her phone. So whenever she needed funding, she had access to it. She could make spending decisions based on her needs. Some of my colleagues, actually last year at International Women's Day, with work that we're doing with USAID, they launched a program called Women Connect Challenge. And that's focused on, basically, it's a global call for solutions to improve women's participation in everyday life by meaningfully changing the ways women and girls access and use technology. There have already been a couple of grantees in the Asia-Pacific region, and I'm sure that there will be more to come. And then I only have a little bit of time left, so one other thing, in terms of ways that we're trying to support practitioners and those who are working in the development sector to use technology more effectively, my colleagues have developed, together with USAID, a gender and ICT toolkit, and also an online course focused on thinking about, what do you have to do when you're thinking about gender-appropriate applications of digital technology in development. And we've also done similar guides around digital financial services. So I will stop there, and looking forward to the next question.
So thank you very much, Josh. Give him a hand. I thought it was quite innovative that your organization launched what appears to be a sort of grand challenges type program on Women Connect, so that was fascinating. I'm now going to turn to the lady on my left, Virna Seo, who is, as I mentioned before, the Managing Director of SAP Indochina. As you may know, SAP is one of the largest companies of its kind. But what you may not know is that SAP appears to have a special initiative related to providing a platform to give more visibility to women in the tech industry and to help women form networks in collaboration with Global Digital Women, which is an international network of women digital pioneers. So as the first woman in your current role, can you share with us why mentoring and network building is so important for this agenda? And could you share with us a success story on your personal or your professional experience? Thank you.
So thank you. So first,
oh, you have the other one.
So first of all, thank you for inviting me to participate in the panel discussion. So why is mentoring and networking important for women? I think first of all, as was mentioned earlier, women are still underrepresented in technology today. Only 20%, according to the Small Business Trends, are women in technology, even though it's much better than in the past. And second reason would be entry-level women are 18% less likely to be promoted compared to their male colleagues, which means that once even they get to the to get to the workforce, they join the workplace, they are less likely to be promoted. And a large part of it is because women, unlike men who have many years, know about the power of networking and the old boys club, and having a drink and cigar together will help you get new job opportunities. Women don't behave that way because very traditionally we have to go home and take care of our family. So for that reason, I think it's very important and that women are empowered and supported to network and to build mentorships and to mentor others as well. So at SAP, we formalize it in several ways. We have the Business Women's Network, which is in the 11th anniversary today, this year, which is the largest employee-led network initiative across the world. And it's not only for women, it's also for men. It's for everybody in the company, but it's to promote gender equality, to recognize women's challenges and see how we can support them. As part of International Women's Day today, actually later in the afternoon, we will be running a BWN, as we call it for short, event in our office here in Thailand. Yeah. So this is one way we formalize it to encourage women to join and to empower them to form networks and to network with each other in a way that will help them to create new job opportunities for themselves, and also that they are more visible to management. I think that is also key. Very often women think that we work hard, we do our best, we contribute, and we should be promoted. But that doesn't always happen because men have learned that it's important that you are loud, you are heard, you talk about your achievements and successes, whereas women don't quite often. So having such networks and opportunities for women to speak and participate are ways for them to be visible to management and to be known that they are ready for new opportunities. From a personal aspect, I have been SAP for about 7.5 years, and this is my 5th job at SAP. So in order to do that, I had great support from mentors. And SAP, the other initiative is that we, as part of the development conversation with all employees, the manager and your employee would talk about, well, do you need a mentor, and what should that mentor work with you on? So and this is for everybody, not just for women, but for men and women. So as part of that process, we are actively encouraged to seek mentorship. I have at least 4 or 5 mentors at SAP over my 7.5 years. And we also are clear about when you seek mentorship, what is it for? Is it to look for new job opportunities? Is it to understand what should you do as part of your next career? Or is it to do with doing better in your current role? So as a personal example, about 3 or 4 years ago, as I was looking to be promoted and get into more executive roles, one of the areas I was not very comfortable yet was public speaking, as I'm doing here. So at that point in time, my manager said, well, why don't I get our Asia Pacific head for public communications to be your mentor? And she talked to me about public speaking, how to be more comfortable, seeking role models, which is what women like doing, and how to improve my public speaking skills. Another example is to get where I am in my current role. My longtime mentor in SAP, who is the Asia Pacific president, have always encouraged me, why don't you apply to be a country MD? It gives you great opportunity to do a role beyond sales leadership, to represent SAP for the country. So that is also part of it, and I think I would encourage all women to seek mentorship and to network more. And externally as well, SAP is encouraging and working very closely with startups in particular to encourage women entrepreneurs to network and seek mentorship. So our startup program called SAP IO Foundry has got a program where we support women-led enterprise entrepreneurs and give them access to our technology, as well as provide mentorship opportunities for them to learn from others and to develop and how do they, should raise funds and be successful from other male and female entrepreneurs who are successful, as well as access to SAP executives.
Thank you very much. It's interesting that your company has a long history of networking and mentorship for staff, and certainly it could be applied not just to other private sector enterprises, but also NGOs, the diplomatic sector, government, etc. So that was fascinating, as well as the work that you're doing to translate some of those experiences into helping other women entrepreneurs. So that ends round one, ladies and gentlemen, and we're moving on to round two. This is supposed to be a shorter, snappier round where the panelists respond to the same question. I'm going to use my prerogative, because we're a bit behind time, to ask you to stick to 3 minutes instead of 4, and to be as sharp and as pointy as you can. So, in the context, this is a question, drum roll please. In the context of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and notably SDG 5, can you propose one important action point that governments, CSOs, the private sector, both startups and larger corporations, or individuals need to take to empower women and girls in the Asia Pacific in an innovative way, or by using innovation and technology? So I think I'm going to start with you, Kalpana. If you don't mind, we'll move this way, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think if we look at SDG 5, for me, I think we should look at it in conjunction with SDG 17, which is the one on partnerships. Because I think a lot of the work that can really be significant and transformative will involve partnerships. So I think what I would say is that we need to look at innovative, out-of-the-box partnerships, whether it's the private sector, whether it's civil society organizations, government, and certainly I think social enterprises, because I think entrepreneurs and young startups, and to encourage that in a way that we're able to actually create partnerships which are innovative. So I think the innovation, if we have innovation in partnerships, we'd actually be able to come up with a whole range of solutions to issues and to the kind of concerns at SDG 5, but certainly for me, the work that I do, SDG 11, on cities and sustainable public spaces would be useful. And I say that because, I think the work that we've done, we found that we've had very exciting partnerships with the UN, which has allowed us to go to many more countries. We've had partnerships with governments and municipalities who've actually approached us and said, we'd like you to do this work for us. We've also had partnerships with universities who've said, let's take your technology, let's take your methodology and do something exciting with it, something different, and maybe do some research also. So recently we just had a project with a university in the UK where we worked with girls in a low-income neighborhood. And we asked them to map their experience of the city using WhatsApp. So they kept something called WhatsApp Diaries. So as they navigated the city, they sent a photograph or a little text about what they felt. Did I feel safe here? Did I feel uncomfortable? Did someone stare at me? Whatever their experience. And we put that together, and we actually, they put it together and they made a kind of a narrative about it. And we got somebody, a filmmaker, to work with us to make it into a rap song and a rap video. So I would encourage all of you to see it. It's called Khader Ki Ladkiyan. It's on YouTube, Khader. So it's basically Khader Ki Ladkiyan means the girls of Khader. Khader is a neighborhood. So they made this really fantastic little hip-hop rap song about their experience of the city. So, so to do, and therefore I think even the technology of a YouTube or this thing, if you get women and girls to harness it to use them. So technology in itself is not necessarily always empowering, but it's how you use the technology, how you encourage more people to use the technology, and then, I think that's what makes it most powerful.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask people just to do one after the other.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm thinking very much in the same lines. And actually I had 2 action points, if you allow, Danica. But I will... 2 action points, that's perfect. Very good, yes. The first one is get ready for the change, and the second one is partnerships. What I mean by get ready for the change is, I think that we know that technological revolution is and has been already reality. Digital disruption of existing industries, existing livelihoods is also a reality. It has happened and it will happen in an exceeding pace. So so rather than fighting it, let's see how to adapt with the new situation. I just heard that those 10 of the world's biggest companies in 2006, only one of those 10 companies are now on the list of the 10 biggest companies. I think this shows quite clearly what kind of a sort of a change we are going through. And how to get ready, I think we have, almost everybody in the panel has already touched upon many of the things, but the technological, the technical, the education, getting comfortable with the technology that we have, I think is a key. And also then to look at the sort of what are the skills in the future, what should be the curriculum of today? And of course, technological skills is extremely important to keep them up, but also to think that, okay, where are humans? Where are we better than computers? To underline the sort of the human qualities and focus on those where the computers can't compete. Then coming to the partnerships, and here I would like to bring up, we have inspired by this by the theme of this year's International Women's Day, we at the EU decided to take a campaign where we are going to present innovations, technological or social innovations from our countries, and join forces again with the UN here and with local partners, and take us to April, which is the International Innovation Day. And then we will sort of present innovations that enhance gender equality. And there are some really interesting experiences. I already mentioned some, but for instance, Portugal will be presenting Engineer for a Day, like a STEM education. There will be innovation on social enterprises, on equal pay and so forth. So I think these two things, the partnerships and getting ready. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we were told that this is our time to get a tweetable soundbite out. So get your Twitter apps open on the phone. Here it comes. Here's okay. So to me, I think focus on what I call the 6 A's, right? And that's accessibility, affordability, appropriate design, ability, aspiration, and attitudes. So let me very quickly, because we don't have a lot of time, walk through them. So access, I'm talking about women and girls' access to digital technology, to devices. If we look at South Asia, for example, the gender gap is 28% in mobile phone ownership and 58% in access to internet. For affordability, ensuring that technology and access to internet and mobile phone services are affordable for women and girls. When we talk about appropriate design, it's that the technologies, that the applications, the software, that they're designed to the needs of women and girls, right? So if you have a literacy gap in a country, well, then you have to make sure that, something that's being designed, that you want it to be inclusive, it has to also be accessible to people who are illiterate. So thinking through that. Also channels of access. When we talk about financial services, if the only access points are men in a market, is that comfortable for women? And then when we talk about ability, obviously that's where we get into skills training and all of that. Aspiration is what a number of us talked about, is that women and girls aspire to not only use technology in new and empowering and interesting ways, but that they're also innovating, that they're seeing themselves as leaders, that they're able to do this design and lead technology interventions themselves. And then attitudes is the social norms that exist and changing those. And it's different from different countries. I'll just give an example. in Bangladesh, where we've done a lot of work. When we were working with women there, and 75% of the people that we worked with through our financial inclusion work were women, oftentimes we had to convince the male head of household, whether that be the husband or the father, as to why this is actually beneficial to their wife or daughter, and also to them. And so making sure that you address those societal attitudes that exist, that's very important as well.
I think if she takes this microphone, all of them will be here. So.
I would like to touch on 2 points. One is to leverage on the technology we have today. So as part of SAP's strategy to empower businesses to become intelligent enterprises, we have built in artificial intelligence, machine learning technology, such that we remove gender bias from our systems. So for example, in our HR platform, in terms of recruiting, and then after that supporting our employees throughout, we have made sure that we remove gender bias from every decision point, from hiring to considering candidates for success as part of the succession planning, so that it is really based on the performance and the merit of the individuals, and it's not based on gender or any other biases at all. So I think technology is important. Another example of technology is, once you have those women in a company, how do you make sure you develop them further? How do you make sure you retain them and you promote them and you support their career growth? So we have got to launch a women's professional growth webinar series, and this is leveraging on the power of a platform for online learning across the world, where we run a series of programs, courses about career development, especially for women, empowering women across 43 countries so far. So those are 2 examples of how we can leverage on technology to support this. Secondly, I think similar to what Josh said, innovation is not just about technologies, it's also about innovating our mindset and our behaviors. So often, many of us, and this is for both men and women, we have all this quite often unconscious bias about what women's role to be, what women's characteristics are, that unconsciously we take them into consideration when we make decisions. So I would say that innovation should apply to innovating our mindset and behaviors, to embrace change, as was discussed earlier, and really having that innovation mindset across all topics. Thank you.
Okay, I think we had a very rich number of ideas related to partnerships, related to changing thoughts, the hearts and minds of people, related, I think quite interestingly, to how you can perhaps make the technological platforms more gender neutral than we are ourselves. We're open now for questions. I will take, I think, given the we're in time, I'll take 2. And while there's 1, and is there a second? While I'm waiting to see a second hand, I just want to commend the work that ESCAP is doing on women's entrepreneurship. Canada is funding a project through ESCAP. I know they're doing other things as well that will, inter alia, look at innovative forms of financing for women entrepreneurs, and they seem to have a team that really knows what they're doing in a space that for many of us is rather hard to fathom. So you had a question, so I'll start with you. And is there a second hand anywhere? Just, okay, maybe people are tired.
Hi, my name is Rice from UN Women. I'd like to direct my question to Josh and to Verena to give maybe one specific example of your work around social impact innovation or social enterprises where business opportunities can be made between women-led type of businesses or business entrepreneur and the private sector driven sort of profit making, but create some sort of social change. There's a lot of buzz around that, but less of the genuine. So it's something that I think a lot of us are in search for, a good example. So I wanted you to highlight maybe one concrete one that in your work is a best kind of like example that explain the share valued perspective. Thanks.
there's another question someone said. So we're oh, hi, okay, please.
Is it on? Good day, everybody. My name is Cornelia Fischer. I started to work for UN ESCAP in 1987, and my deliberation is not about me, but about what we initiated at that time in terms of interagency cooperation that didn't exist at all. There was nothing in terms of women in development. Since I came from Western Germany, I had a mission and an agenda in terms of women in development that was, well, it's still up to date, pretty advanced. So what we achieved over time, we had the first representative of UNICEF 1987 from the US, New York, and we were, some of us were really appalled when the first thing she did here was organizing a fashion show with a catwalk. And her boyfriend, I mean, she was like Barbie and Ken. So others of us, I mean, I'm economist by training. And I mean, we were not militant feminists or what, but we were, you know, working in engineering, in STEM, and, you know, the fashion show for fundraising. And we were all encouraged to participate and put on the high heels, and we thought like, no, thank you. So in any case, we achieved over years that they were focal points for women in every agency. UNESCO, FAO, ILO, UN ESCAP in every division. I worked initially under Dr. Ram from India, and my two supervisors were from Nepal. So they thought I was a hydra with 7 heads. They had never come across a creature like myself. So the oppression, the discrimination, the humiliation, I mean, you name it, I had it. Nevertheless, I was fortunate that I was a UNIDO staff member. UNIDO did not, and as to today, has not a regional office in Asia Pacific, which is another appalling point since it's the United Nations Industrial Development Organization.
And
right there. Okay, we made it. Sorry, I'm not up to date.
Well,
So,
of course, many women in the room appreciate and lived through.
okay, what I want to know.
Yes, okay.
When I participated here in 2017, I was delighted to see an ILO representative on the panel, a UNDP representative on the panel. I want to know, where do we stand in terms of interagency cooperation, in terms of public-private partnership, and I think that would be enough for an agenda. And then, of course, we have the action plan, which I can download online. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. I'll turn to the 2 panelists who have been asked a question in their remit. And then I don't know if members of the UN executive, perhaps Her Excellency the Executive Secretary, might wish to speak to the wider issue of interagency cooperation inside the UN system. But perhaps we could start with you, Verena.
So that's a great question, and I will give 2 examples. One of it is what I've mentioned earlier. SAP have a startup program supporting startups called the SAP IO Foundry, and we actually have launched a program, a women-led tech program to support mentorship and to give access to our technology to women-led entrepreneurs. And of startups to support women, because and to foster that collaboration between SAP as a very large multinational and smaller companies to startup and startups, because that is important, as I think we were said earlier, when there are women entrepreneurs and women who create technology, they are more likely to create technology that would be supporting women and to look out for women. So that's one example. The other initiative we have is as part of our New Gen Lab, in collaborations with universities, we have set up what we call girls' lounges to support girls to become innovators and have initiatives such as, you know, girls who code, as mentioned before, coding is something that would empower women, can code anywhere, and that's another way that we support in collaboration with universities. Okay.
Yeah, so one example from Myanmar, my colleagues there have, they've been supporting civil society organizations sort of more broadly, and one of the things they did was looking at supporting tech entrepreneurs who had applications that were focused on empowering civil society organizations. And there was a one company that was founded by two sisters, they're twins, and so they received funding to sculpt. It was actually a maternal health yeah, I believe it was maternal and child health application, I believe. I can get you more details if you're interested. And actually, there's an organization that's not linked to us called Seed Stars that does sort of incubation and support of startups in the tech sector around Asia. I was just at their event a couple months ago, and I was really happy to run into these two sisters there. So they were able to step up from doing their work in Myanmar now to being elevated to highlighting their work at a regional perspective, and hopefully this is something that they can continue on as well. But there's a lot of work, I think, in the development sector that needs to be done still in terms of looking at how we work with social enterprises.
So I think we all appreciate not just the questioner from UN Women, the very concrete examples that helps make this real for us. In answer to the question about how the UN is ensuring women, there's interagency cooperation, especially around the issues of women equality. I understand that the Executive Secretary will provide at least the beginnings of an answer. It sounds like a very broad question, but please, over to you, Excellency.
Okay, thank you very much, Donika, and also thank you very much for the question raised. Certainly, on how we can ensure, actually, it's already ongoing, but of course, the concern is how we can do more, work together more in a coordinated fashion, of course, not only within UN agencies, but also UN agencies with all stakeholders, because gender-related issues is not only for UN agencies, right, to consider, but for all of us to work together. Maybe a good answer would be to look at today's event. Concrete example, today's event is a joint collaborative work. We've been doing this, not only this event, but many other activities program with our colleagues at UN Women. That's one concrete example, and other examples plenty, but my colleagues just give me some further information. The Beijing Plus 25, that I mentioned in my opening remarks, we also preparing the preparatory meeting, the regional preparatory meeting. I think this will be held in November, November or December, later this year. The Beijing event itself will be in March next year, So we, of course, we work very closely together with, especially with UN Women. And then with the activities, the project that Ambassador Donika mentioned earlier, funded kindly by the government of Canada to advance this entrepreneurship with innovative approach, IT, ICT. We work also closely together with our colleagues, among others, UNCDF, right? Yes, UNCDF. So these are examples, and of course, in light of UN reform, I don't know whether all of you have been following this, but we are now in the midst of the ongoing UN reform. This year, the reform will come to the regional phase. Last year already settled on the country level. So basically, how to work closer together within UN and all levels, yeah, global, regional, country level, to advance the SDGs, which, of course, one of that is on gender parity, gender equality issues. Okay, again, thank you very much.
So I think we're just 4 minutes over time, and so it's a good time to wrap up. I want to thank my panelists for giving of their time and their ideas and their energy, and the organizers for pulling together such a good panel and for providing me with a helpful kind of script that I could follow as I moderated today. And I just wanted to say how pleased I am to have the honor to have been part of International Women's Day here and to see so many of my fabulous diplomatic colleagues in the room. And lastly, those of you that haven't yet thought about it or haven't done so, please consider going on and looking at #GenderPledge. It's perhaps a good thing to do on International Women's Day to commit yourself to doing something active for the cause of women's equality. So it's a campaign that was started some months ago, but hopefully it's picking up speed. So I encourage you to check it out. So happy International Women's Day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you to our excellent moderator, our inspiring speakers, and to all of you in the audience today for your engagement in today's session. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of the Asia-Pacific Regional Commemoration of International Women's Day 2019. We would like to invite all of you for some refreshments just outside this meeting room. Thank you very much.
Okej. oktober 2016. Så på kvällen så skulle det här EU-ASEAN-mötet börja, och det gjorde det också. Och